and admire some of the things they do, but we should not think that commencement speech rhetoric about the virtues of critical thinking or nuanced thinking or contextual thinking, three of my favorite kinds of thinking, is going to change their minds. We cannot just keep saying the same things and insist, really, we're going to have to do things. Now, when humanists defend themselves, they almost never do it for straightforward reasons of lost resources, power, or prestige. Those are legitimate reasons to resist change. Instead, what we talk about are a higher rationale that often turns around the special skills that only we can impart in our classes, or claims of rigor that other disciplines and other schools don't practice, or I don't think they even value it. The boundaries around our disciplines were made to keep out amateurs as well as other disciplines. That's why we talk about interdisciplinarity, because we're starting with the idea of the discipline in the first place. And that first job of keeping out the amateurs has worked great. You don't really have many amateur critical theorists. In my field, we do have lots of amateur American historians, and they sell a bazillion books, but never on our syllabi. Or on other people's syllabi, if you happen to be one. I teach your stuff all the time. But what if those disciplinary walls are locking us in as well as keeping others out? What if, despite our democratization of subject and tone, we are limiting our influence by our own policing and resistance to incursion or seduction? We know that some of the big major dividers, and we've heard it here today, are schools. You might learn to get along with another discipline in arts and sciences, but asking me to get along with another school just it seems to be asking me a bit much. But are they any less arbitrary than the divisions within arts and sciences? Did you have a college of arts and sciences? That's what it's called, a school of arts and sciences? What is it? College. But really, is there more of an affinity between the sciences and humanities, say, than between the sciences and economics and the business school? Don't historians in law schools and education schools have more in common with historians in arts and sciences than they do with some of the people they share buildings with? We've reified bundles of disciplines, born of institutional history, into categories of kind. We mistake turf for some kind of philosophical integrity. And here's the dean and the president in me talking. People can learn thinking skills, even the iconic critical thinking skills, in courses other than liberal arts or even the humanities. What they cannot learn elsewhere is the substance of the humanities, the particular range and complexity and depth of the specialized subjects that we teach. I, for one, think that students learn something particularly useful by thinking about the rise and fall of the most powerful slave society in the modern world in the context of the most dynamic and rapidly growing democracy in the world. I think teaching the history of the American South has particular things to teach, not just critical thinking skills or the ability to write or organize your ideas or speak. I care about that subject for itself, and I know my colleagues care about their subjects for themselves, and that is the way it's supposed to be. You heard the aha moments. It's not for a generalized thing. Wouldn't it be great to be able to think critically? But to think coming back from East Africa that I can remember now that novel I read, and I certainly get the sense of connection that was there. It's the particularity of what we spend so much time and energy learning about that is worth teaching. Now, the corollary of that is that we don't need to be disparaging other forms of learning and knowledge, which seems reflexive, I'd have to say. Other subjects are fascinating too and are taught by gifted and passionate professors. All professors need to get over their sometimes hidden and sometimes overt disdain for other kinds of knowledge and learning taught on a different floor of our building or even on the other side of the parking lot, if you can imagine that far away. There are great professors of accounting and marketing, and I've seen with my own eyes the changes that they make in their students' lives. And I think we would do better to acknowledge that rather than to diminish them and imagine that we have a special possession over touching with excitement what our students learn. What makes us different is what we teach. And we get to teach some of the most profound, enduring, life-changing, dangerous, and exciting stuff there is to people at a time in their lives when they want and need to know it, whether they recognize it or not. I love hearing the excitement in a class about Schopenhauer and Wagner. Yes, a whole semester, and loved it. But if humanists can be a little arrogant, we can also be too deferential. We let ourselves be defined as secondary, as living off other people's creativity. Writing a novel or painting a painting or performing a piece of music can, of course, be important. But making sense of many novels, or finding visual patterns in an entire era, or spreading word of neglected music are also worthy. A great teacher of English changes lives in ways both subtle and profound, year in and year out, long after 99.8% of novels have come and gone and faded into recycling. We need to remember that we have enduring traditions of our own. What we need, I think, are ways to share the news more broadly. And this is where our own moment in history provides us with some remarkable opportunities. Humanistic information is proliferating on screens of all sorts. The Library of Congress and universities and libraries and businesses all over the world give us access to the humanistic archive in ways unimaginable only 20 years ago. Thanks to online journals and websites and videos and inclusive electronic conversations, humanists enjoy a range of venues and audience unimaginable to those who wrote for only a few small magazines in the much romanticized heyday of public intellectuals. I think about how many people read Stanley Fish in the New York Times and his blogs, and the kind of reach that kind of humanistic thinking can have. But generally, humanists have not figured out how to make use of this new profusion of sources and audiences. Right now, we are rather bedazzled and unsophisticated consumers of electronic machinery. We have not yet changed our mode of scholarship or teaching. But we will. We have, after all, the entire record of the human experience to explore and present in new ways. We have media that stretch instantaneously all over the world. These opportunities and these pressures are too compelling to resist forever. In the meantime, people are reaching out to the humanities. And again, we heard it from your wonderful students today. People in the sciences know they need the humanities. People in engineering know they need humanities. People in medical care know they need the humanities. And by and large, their initiatives come to us, partly because of a lack of confidence that we don't go to them. We need to realize that we know things they do not, and things that they need to know. Highly motivated adult students fill classes of all kinds, from community colleges to the most elite schools, eager to see what they only glimpsed when they were 19. When they let past them, and I hear the laughing, because you know what that's like. In many ways, we should take our introductory classes when we're seniors, right? When we are able to wrap our minds around, why would I need to know Shakespeare? Oh, I see. Life is really complicated, and he helped give it pattern and depth and meaning. Millions of people seek out the humanities in whatever form they appear, from classrooms and museums to television, radio, and the web. So perhaps you'll forgive me, Dan, this would be the time to fire up the web, if you could. Forgive me to tell you about something I'm trying to walk the walk a little bit with this. So you heard from Nathan about the Valley of the Shadow, a website I started in 1993, which is about as early as you can start it, before, and I want the young people to brace themselves, before PDF files existed. Yes, there was such a time in which I would assume that people were viewing whatever we made on 2400 baud modems crawling across their screen. I'm not going to show that to you today, but I'm going to show you some of the stuff that we're making at Richmond. And so when I came there, I said what I really want to do is continue these things that I'd started at Virginia. And you can see here, Americans in Paris. But I want to show you the thing that I'm passionate about right now. And I should go ahead and acknowledge a problem with what I'm saying. I chose what I study for my living because it connected with the place I cared about. Okay? I chose to study slavery and war and segregation and lynching and Pentecostal religion and country music and politics because I cared about the people who'd lived through it. And I've chosen to live my adult life in the places, even the capital of the Confederacy, that are still living with those struggles. So maybe I've stacked the deck, and I'll just go ahead and admit this, that what I'm suggesting is the things that we study can connect. So the geek in me is so tempted to show you all these things because it's so cool, but I'll just show you one thing. This is something I'm actually was working on this morning. So you may have heard that people still argue about what caused the Civil War, and we're on the 150th anniversary of the causing the Civil War right now. So the New York Times has asked me to write something about that because they keep getting letters saying, well, it wasn't really about slavery, was it? I mean, it was about states' rights or it was about the economy or something, and people just can't really accept that. And you would think that historians, who all of us agree that slavery drove that, but why is it, and this is true, it happened last night at a real estate leaders' dinner where I spoke, somebody will always say, well, Dr. Ayers, that's interesting, but it was really states' rights, wasn't it? And this is like embedded in our culture. So I thought, hey, maybe we could try to solve that. And so what we've done is we've digitized about 3,000 pages of the secession debates in Virginia. Because what happens is, darn technology. So what we've done is we said Virginia waits 4 months after South Carolina to secede. And a lot of our talk about states' rights, in South Carolina, it's pretty clear, we're saying we're seceding because of slavery. But Virginia debates for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks and generates all of this language about things. So I thought, okay, let's go back and look at that and see what they're debating. So I just typed in slave with an asterisk, and it finds that slavery was only mentioned 1,432 times, which I would take to be, not to be, an empiricist, but roughly a lot, I would say. And this is always the fun thing of using a browser you've not used before, is that it's not actually doing that thing it's supposed to do. It's supposed to put in different shades of color. I think that Chrome thing came up. But what it also can show is that, but the language of rights was all over the place too. So they did talk about rights. But what this allows to do, there'll be a link, and we'll invite America. Come in and explore it for yourselves, and you will see that the two languages of rights and slavery are so intertwined that you cannot separate them. But I invite you to see it for yourself. I'm presenting you because I'm a historian of this, and I knew that this is a crucial document, and I knew these had been edited and they were all clean. I knew the people at the Library of Virginia would let us digitize them, and I know that I can give you the various kinds of tools that are going to let you do that. Let's see if we can't actually move the culture forward so we don't argue about the same thing for another 150 years, right? Let's actually use the substance of the humanities and share it in a structured way that probably only a history geek would think of to do. But we've also... Sorry. So you can see it by the county, and we give you tips about how to do all that, what the convention was. And so I'm hoping to unleash an argument about this. But now, instead of just saying, this is what my granddaddy told me, or this is what I read in Jefferson Davis's book from 1885, or my fourth grade history teacher told me, show me with some evidence. Let's do what we do in our classes. This is what you think? Schopenhauer, where's that passage that says that? Okay? So what we're trying to do is expand what we know works, which is confronting people with the actual text